Hello and welcome to Roots to Sprouts. In this video, we are going to see how to propagate the perennial plants, especially the flower plants, which is from the bulbs, because the bulb plants has an intention to multiply every year. As it grows every year, you will see how dense and how crowded they are. There are several plants that we grow in our garden from the bulbs. But in this video, just to make it focused, I am taking lily and kenna. These are the two most favorite plants I have in my garden, which is so bright and colorful. So let's get into the video, and I'm going to show you how to split, divide and multiply these perennial plants every year with zero maintenance so that your garden is full of flowers and colors. Since these are perennial plants, during the winter these plants will die, but the roots are hardy so that it comes back every spring. That's the nature of these perennial plants. The idea or the tip what I want to share with you is how to multiply these plants and make it not too crowded and nice so that you can multiply these plants and plant it wherever you want so that you will get more plants every year. As an example, what you are seeing here, these kenna are, I got this from Callaway's. I think each kenna pot I got is like $3 or $4, or some of them I got it as a bulb and I placed it on the ground. So I think if I remember correct, this entire row I had like 12 bulbs and 4 kenna plants in the pot I got and I placed it 2 years ago. And this year when I saw it multiplied and it crowded and the growth was not that great how it was last year. It's because how dense they grow, they are very crowded, and the roots doesn't have enough space for them to produce a good growth. Even though you fertilize, you feed them properly, and it multiplies, and you can see it coming off from the bed and to the other areas. So first I cut these plants without disturbing the roots because I don't know where exactly the bulbs and how much growth it had under the ground, so that I don't want to directly dig and damage the roots. So I slowly removed all the plants to see a clear view on the ground so I can dig and take out these roots or bulbs, whatever it is. And these are the seed pods that you can collect the seeds for these kennas, and you can plant with the seeds as well. So there are multiple ways you can have the kennas grown in your garden. One is the root propagation, the second one is the bulbs, the third one is the seeds, what you see from the seed pods. As we were doing this process, we collected a lot of seeds, so we are going to plant them for next season. And we wanted to see the difference between all these different types of propagation or growing from the seed, how much time it takes and how healthy these plants and how much flowers it can produce. So we want to see the difference between all these methods. So we started collecting the bulbs, seeds and everything. So the next what you're seeing now, it's a similar process that we adopted for the lily plants, and these are even more precious because each bulb I placed 2 years ago. I think it was only like 10 or 12 in a pack I got, and I placed within like 6 inches to 1 feet distance. I placed each of these bulbs, and today you won't believe how much I got after they multiplied in the ground in 2 years. So you will be surprised to see that at the end of this video what I'm going to show you that it produced in 2 years. So this is one of the best way for you to propagate and multiply your plants, because look at this one example. This is just one pulp that I placed in the ground, and it multiplied like anything. And these are the seeds for kenna. And it hasn't dried yet, but once it dried you will really see the seed inside each of these pots. So now I started digging the kenna roots to see how safe we can get these roots from the ground so that we can dry it and use it for the next season. Since it was a clay soil that what we have, even though you added your planting soil and all these kind of additional fertilizers and rich soil materials on the ground, as the root penetrates into the ground, it obviously gets into the clay soil, which is the native soil in Texas. So we have to be really careful when you're digging it, because sometimes these roots goes even like 6 to 9 inches deep, and you need to be very careful. So this is an example of how it multiplied. I had one, and now from each pulp you can see 5 or 6 things multiplied. So after taking out these bulbs from the ground, we started clearing the mud clay from the bulb so that it can be secured, so that we can place it again. So as you see here, we did a light water wash to get rid of the clay and the soil, so we get a clear view how many bulbs you have and how you can separate these bulbs without damaging, and you can create a beautiful lily garden with all these bulbs growing in different places, because I'm sure it's going to multiply again wherever you're going to plant this single bulb. And I can tell you, it's worth investment of your time what you're doing this at least once in a year or once in 2 years. When you do this process, you can save some of these bulbs and you can gift it to your friends or to your neighbors, or you can place it in your front yard in the flower bed. It's going to give you a very nice, beautiful view into your garden. The 10 or 12 bulbs which I got like 2 years before, in 2 seasons now, it multiplied into 100 plus of bulbs. I didn't count, but I can tell you it's more than 100 by looking at the tray and the amount of bulbs I started collecting it. It's definitely more than 100 bulbs. I placed it in the ground in my garden, but it's not necessary you need to put everything in the ground. If you find you have so many, put it in a pot, put it in a small containers or in a hanging pot anywhere, and that's going to bloom a very nice pink flower with a green bush around it. It's going to look very nice wherever you're going to put the pots. So now looking at this tray, you will get an idea what I was talking about. A multiplication from 10 to 100 plus is exactly happened in a period of 2 years or less than 2 years. So if you are not taking care of these lily in your ground, it not only affect the growth of this lily, you will also lose a nice lily garden by not propagating it and keeping it in other places. Let's take a look at Kenna, what we are trying to propagate in the same manner. But Kenna doesn't have a pulp like what we have seen in lily. It has a different root system. So I'll show you what exactly it is. But when you're taking it from the ground like this, these are like these. This has a different characteristics to these roots, so it won't be in a very nice proper shape. So you have to take it in such a way that where there are main knots and what are the main roots and the filler roots, you need to check that, and you need to cut it in such a way where you can propagate these plants for the next season. So now what we are doing, as I said, we are doing a light watering so that we can get rid of the clay and the soil from these roots, and it can kept it for dry for some time. And once again, you shouldn't keep it under a direct sun for drying these things. Keep it on a shade or in the late in the evening. Let it dry for some time so that the water and the moist everything from these roots goes off, and then you can start packing it and save it for the next season. It was a evening time, so we laid all these roots on a table so that the water is fully drained from that roots, and then we started putting it in a big tray like this, because we don't want to put them in a direct sun for a long time. We just kept it for the water to drain, and then what we are planning to do is to take it inside the house and keep it in the garage, and pack it in such a way that there is a air circulation and the roots are getting really stable for the next planting season. So this is my garage floor. So I started placing it on the floor so it can dry it for a day or two, and once it is dried, we have a plan to pack this, as I said earlier. And in the same way we did it for lily as well. So both, any pulps that you want to propagate, don't put it on a direct sunlight or keep it out for too long, because with the direct sunlight it will tend to start producing the shoot and it will start growing. But as we are trying to propagate it, we need to give some cooling time for these roots to settle, and then you can plant it back in your ground. This is after few days. You can completely see how these roots are dried, and it is ready to be packed for few weeks, and then you can plant it again as needed wherever you want to grow these lily or canna, in the garden or in your flower bed or in a pot, anywhere. So I took an empty cardboard box and I started putting them inside this box so that it can be there for a couple of weeks once I decide to put them back on the ground. Even if you start putting it now in the ground, the winter has started, right? So it will not grow. As you see, these sprouts are coming on the pulps. The good thing is, as you start planting it now, it will settle in the ground, and when before the spring starts, it will have a good time for them to grow and produce flowers well in advance. Otherwise, if you start planting them in the early spring, it might not give you a good result as you expect. It might get delayed to produce the flowers or to give a good growth few weeks or even a month. So I personally recommend, if you are planning to propagate, try to propagate it sometime in the late fall before the winter, so that it settle and it start growing in the early spring, and you will have a very good lily garden, or whatever the perennial bulb garden that you are planning to set. It will have a very good result. As a final step in this process, you have to put it in a neat box like this. And when I was doing this, I did notice some of the knots started producing the growth, so that's a good indication that we haven't disturbed or spoiled these roots, and it is coming back. That's a good news for me, what we did a couple of weeks ago. And when you try covering this in a box like this, the most important thing is air circulation. So try to cover it with some paper or some cloth or whatever it is, but make sure you put some holes on these boxes, as I'm going to show you in this video. That helps these roots to get some air circulation inside this box, because I kept it in the garage. In Texas, the garage sometimes get too much of hot or dryness or all that, so I want the air circulation, something to happen inside this box, so I put some holes. So try this method. I'm sure I have been successful in doing this last couple of years, and I'm sure if you try this, it will help you as well. Let me know how it works, because as a gardener, I really want to share ideas and get ideas, or anything that what we are doing is not correct, to get corrected from others. So if you see something that is different, or I can do a better job in propagating or storing these bulbs, please let us know. Happy to share knowledge and learn from others. Thank you so much for all your support and love. Keep watching our channel and supporting us. I'll talk to you all in the next video. Take care.